If you want to know the physical therapist that I would personally hire and the qualities and characteristics associated with those people, you have to tune into this episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome all new listeners, and welcome back to those who have heard my content in the past. If you want to know the physical therapist that I would personally hire and the qualities and characteristics associated with those people, you have to tune into this episode. Before I go onto the podcast, let me tell you what is new in life. A lot of good things happening over the last week. I turned 40 years old, 40, and I have a lot of reflections that I've had that I'll share on a different podcast. But I feel amazing after turning 40, and people ask, is it different? No, it's kind of like, just another birth date. But it is a milestone in my life personally, and just a lot of things that I've accomplished in my life, and just celebrating those things as I go along the journey. But yeah, so that's me. The kids are great. They're out of school. They are out of school until I think the middle of the summer. And so if you're on YouTube, you'll see I'm in a different room because they are home. And so it is absolute chaos in my house during the day. So that's why I'm in a different location. Other than that, my wife and I are great. I just had a birthday party at our house. A lot of good things, good family time, and just a lot of reflection. So the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I literally have been reflecting so much over the last month, and what the next like 3 to 5 years look like for my family, and for my businesses and my team, and everybody kind of commingles. And as I think about the future and I think about growth mode, I think about how our family is going to grow, not in number of people, but in how we're going to grow within our current unit, but then also within sports performance physical therapy. How are we going to grow? We're talking about a potential new location. We're looking at bringing on people. And the more I talk to people about, growth, I have to ask, okay, what do people look like in that growth mode? And so as I talked to my wife, and I talked to my team about this, I was like, this would be a great episode for everybody to hear, that these are the discussions I literally have with my team and my wife that I wanted to share, that I think it's very important wherever you are in your stage. I love mentoring physical therapists. You guys know that. I'm obsessed with it. I enjoy mentoring and leading my team of physical therapists and other team members and other positions. So as a mentor, as a husband, as a father, and as an employer, these are the qualities that I look for, that I want people to grow with me, both as a team member and a colleague. And I really look for these traits. And it's critical that you recognize which ones you're really strong at, because I think that ultimately we all aspire to have a job where we feel valued, a job where you want to like absolutely crush it and grow with and grow into. And when I look for physical therapists, I'm looking for specific qualities. So when I do that interview, I look at the resume, I do the interview. You go through a rigorous process. Anybody who's ever done our interview process understand this. And I look for these traits, and my interview and my recruitment team will also look at these traits too. So here they are, in no particular order. And I'll tell you why my main take home is, after all of these things, you have to tune in. All right. Number one, uh, and this doesn't happen all the time, but I'm looking for a hard worker, right? Like, I'm looking for a hustler, somebody who is willing to put in that time and work, right? For those of you who know, I was illiterate in high school. I taught myself how to read and write in my freshman year of college, and I was it took me a lot of time and energy to do that, and I understand that. And I see a lot of people come in with certain GPAs and different time points that they come in. They were hustlers, and that to me tells me, okay, you're willing to put in work, and I get that. And a high GPA doesn't mean anything aside from you were really good at tests or you put a lot of work in. I mean, there's so many variables to that. So I don't look at strict GPA. I want to know the story. I want to know things behind. How have you pushed the limit Ooh, I like that one better. A hard worker, but also somebody who pushes the limit. It's the same thing to me, right? So somebody who's willing to push that limit in terms of either work hour, work ethic, whatever it may be. And that's really what it comes down to. Because I really appreciate that. I know that you put a lot of hard work into yourself. That to me is so important, that you have put yourself as a priority. And that's ultimately what I'm looking for, is that you see yourself as a priority. So you're willing to work for yourself and your personal and professional development. That's number one. Number two is somebody who is adaptable. Before, when I opened my physical therapy business and this current business, I learned that I initially started with, I'm going to do this all. I'm the hustler. I'm going to do this all by myself, and I don't need anybody's help. And now I'm the complete opposite. I'm like, who's coming with me, right? Like, who am I taking? Like, you're coming with me. Let's do this. You want to put in extra hours here? Let's do this. And so I'm always looking to recruit more people to enter my world so that we can like skyrocket and just go to the moon. And with that, I've changed. So I did an interview this last week, and a lot of these questions were sparked by that. I did an interview with a physical therapist this week, and they said, Chris, you're different now than you were like a year ago. And it sounds like your approach is changing to life and the business. I said, absolutely. And I've learned that this thing is not about me. It's something so much bigger, right? It's about helping physical therapists like yourself. It's helping my community locally, and it's helping the profession globally. And I realized that I can't come in with the mindset that worked for me to get to this point. And I realized that I have to be adaptable, which means that I have to change my lens. How am I going to get to the place where I want? I want to make a huge impact on this planet. In order for me to do that, I have to be adaptable along the way. So I can't be that hardworking hustler and assume I'm going to do it all. I can't conquer the world. I can't conquer the US. I can't do any of that unless I have good people with me. And I've realized that, and I have to be adaptable. So as such, I want the physical therapists in my world to be adaptable as well, because where I am currently in this business with the physical therapy business, those are going to grow. So I'd like for those humans to grow with me. And so coming in, whether you're a physical therapist into your organization, you get hired somewhere and you're like, man, I really love this place, and it continues to grow, you're like, oh my goodness, like more work, more this, like it's not more work, it's adapting, it's pushing your threshold, it's pushing your limit of what you can and can't do. And sometimes it's hard to see that. And so you have to be adaptable and know that things are going to change and be upgraded. Now, if they're being downgraded, that's a different world. Let's assume that you're growing like you're going an upward threshold, or you're flatlining for a little bit and then you have upward progressions. But ultimately, being adaptable, understanding things will change, and you have to change along with it. So you can't be so rigid. You can't. So number one was hardworking. Number two is being adaptable. Number three is growth focused. Now, we asked this on an interview recently. What's the difference between learning and growing? Now, both of those are like good qualities, right? So learning is being able to, like, you're looking for information, right? Like you're like, I just want to get everything. I want to listen to this podcast. I want to get everything I possibly can out of life and world, right? But growing is actually implementing that information onto new things, using that information to then be applied to the patients and athletes that you see. Now, ultimately, what that means for you is that if you're growing, you are constantly looking at that next thing. So if you're just obsessed with learning, that's good too. I think that there's a big place for those people. But if you're growth focused, you're like, I want to learn so I can take it and adapt it to this athlete, and then take it and adapt this. So what you're doing is you're actually exponentially growing versus constantly learning, but you're not really adapting it or using it in your life. And that is a real thing. And I've noticed that. Now, I've interviewed a lot of physical therapists, and what I've noticed is when I see physical therapists, I'll see, low GPAs, mid GPAs, high GPAs, and that doesn't always correlate whether they're learning focused or growth focused. It's about the person. They're just, you can feel it, you can see it. They're like, I can take this information and adapt it and apply it, and I can take it to the next level. So for us, we're looking for hard workers, adaptable, and growth focused. Number four, another physical therapist trait that I would hire is a self-starter. Now, what I mean by that is if I say, hey, let's create a new project. Let's do strength and conditioning programs for baseball players, right? And I say, I want it done in 3 months, and I want four different templates, and let's roll with it. Work with this team of people and do it. Somebody who can just take the information, run, deliver, execute it, and doesn't worry about it being 100%. They just do it. Like they just do it, and without a lot of direction. That's the caveat to that. So I think that a lot of us are self-starters, like we're willing to do it, but the ones who finish, and you can probably shake your head right now, whether you're at the gym or you're driving or whatever it is, I think we're all self-starters, like we can do it, but somebody who finishes it too. And that's a different, that's a trait off of being a self-starter, is that you're also like a self-finisher, like you just do it, right? So I think those are all critical in that when you think about these, right? Like as you listen to all these traits, you're like, that's me. That's like what I have or I aspire to have. And you might say like, well, I'm good at some of these things, but I'm not in these. And it's just like, how do you continue to facilitate hitting all these markers? Now you can ask other employers, other mentors, they're going to have different traits. And at the end of this, I'll tell you why it's so critical to have all of these things and why I search for them specifically, not because I think that they're the most important. It's because when you put them all together, it's amazing what you have. And I'll tell you what that is. Okay. Number five is being humble. This one's so big to me. I was raised by my grandma. Okay, super poor. Like my wife always gives me a hard time when I say this, but I used to eat out of trash cans. That's how poor we were. Like I remember being like under a bridge. I remember eating pizza from the back of trash cans because that's how poor we were. And we were like on federal funding. We ate the government cheese. We did all that. And like you got to be okay with that. Like you got to be humble with whatever your beginnings are, whatever it is that you do. And like, yes, I taught myself to read. Like, yes, I like got out of that world, and I like to conquer the next day, the next step, and that's next stage of my life. But no matter what, underneath all of that, I got to remain humble because the ultimate, like you're doing it for yourself, for not external validation. You're not doing it for anybody else but yourself. Like everything you do personally and professionally, it's not to like have the fame. And if you do that, like that's going to be short lived. You'll understand the more and more success you have, you also have to maintain humility at that. Now you might say like, oh, there's a lot of influencers out there who don't have humility, and that's fine. After doing my last podcast with a physical therapist, Zach, he mentioned that, it's like 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but ultimately, like, it's about who jives with you, right? So the people, that's why I'm sharing my take on the physical therapist that I would hire. I want good humans who are humble, who are just rock stars, who are ready to crush it. They're hardworking, they're hustlers, they're adaptable, they're growth focused, they're self starters. And humility is a big component. As you grow, you're not growing too fast, that you can still look back and be like, I'm grateful for those 10 people getting me to this next level. You're always grateful, always looking at who got you there, because I don't care how good you are, you didn't do it by yourself. It's not possible. As a parent, I see it now because I'm working so much harder on my kids, right? To get them to be good humans and not steal, not tell lies, and do all these other things. And you would think it'd be easy, but sometimes I say things and like my dad will tell my son, like, oh, you just don't do this. And he's like, oh, and I could see that like it finally kicked in. I was like, but that I told you that. It takes a village to be able to raise somebody to like a next level. And just like a professional development, I also notice that too. Like I might be telling a physical therapist something, but they don't get it. And somebody else says it and they're like, oh, I get it. It's not just me. It's not just one person who got you to that next level. It's just a group of people. And I think being humble is being part of that and truly being uh, understanding of what it takes to get to that next level in any personal professional development. So that's number five. Number 6 is being introspective. All right, this is an interesting one. I don't think people give this enough of a glance. Being introspective means that you're constantly self-reflecting. And everything I talked about, hardworking, growth focused, self-started, those are like forward moving things, right? Like they're always about advancing. Humility is about maintaining that balance. And then being introspective is looking backwards. So on this spectrum, I'm telling you, like, okay, you're hardworking, let's move you forward. You're adaptable, you're going to go with the punches. You're growth focused, you're going to keep going forward. You're self-starter, you're going to crush it. Being humble is like right in the center and maintaining the balance. Introspective and self-reflection is always looking in the past and saying, it worked yesterday, will it work tomorrow? So notice that I'm giving you qualities that both are very progressive, but then also reflective and then humble to be able to see where that dial is. You're moving left and right. And so as you advance forward, you're always like, you're checking, you're like looking back, you're like, all right, I did that. I'm excited about this. It seems like I'm in the right place. You're being humble, you're self-reflecting, and so you're advancing very cautiously. You're advancing at a very good pace. It's never too fast. The good things in life are never fast. I've said that many times, and I hope that that has stuck with you. And so somebody who's introspective and constant reflective, I love, sometimes my wife thinks it's too much. We'll be at dinner or, we'll getting the kids ready for bath, and we're talking. I'm like, hey, do you remember like 3 days ago when I said this to you? Like, do you think that was too much? Or we were at a meeting the other day. Do you think I was like a little too aggressive with the team? Like, was I too nice? Like, and she's like, who cares? Like, stop doing that. But that's just my nature. I'm obsessive with doing well in all aspects of my life, and being introspective is so important to me in that. I am constantly reassessing. Am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing for people? Am I remaining humble? I'm always like it's a constant checkpoint with me. But you can't dwell on that because you'll never advance. So it's this hard balance between always advancing, being a hustler, being a growth focused self-starter, and not being too introspective where you can't advance and you're like fearful to make decisions, and in the middle where you're staying humble to make sure. So ultimately, I if you're say, hey Chris, what physical therapist would you hire? I would say somebody who's balanced. Now you can understand that. You're like, I want somebody who's a hard worker, adaptable, growth focused, and self-starter, very progressive, somebody who looks back and is introspective, and then someone who can understand right in the center and maintain humility. Now, that's a constant balance. And, I think that as you grow as a professional, you're going to have time points where you're like, well, I'm a clinic director now. I have my residency done, or I have my SCS, or I have my CSCS. And you're like, I'm finally there. So every time I would see you, like, so if you were being mentored by me and we're going through a session, right? And I say, okay, like, give me everything give me all your wins. That's the way we describe it at Sports Performance. Give me all your wins. And then you like celebrate, right? And then you're like, okay, what are your losses? What are your areas of improvement? Like, what hasn't gone right? But that's like my checkpoint as the introspective aspect. And you're like, okay, humility is like, man, you crushed it this quarter. Let's continue doing that. Now, what's reflective, introspective? What got you there? And what do we need to do? And what's going to come down the pipeline that's going to block you, right? You might become complacent. You have a lot of personal things coming up. How are you going to maintain that balance? You have kids coming in this world, or your spouse and you are pregnant, like all those barriers. So as you continue to progress, it's like, what are those checkpoints? What's going to hit you? What's plan B, plan C? And I think that those qualities produce really good clinicians, but even more so, they're better humans. And so I want to summarize this with my main take home point, that clinicians like yourself, and if you're listening to this podcast, you are super motivated. Like you're like, you want to conquer the world just like me. And because of that, I'm telling you, like, if you want to conquer the world with me, like, this is the therapist that I want to surround myself with. So whether you're in my mentorship groups, or you're listening to this and you're aspired to work at a place like Sports Performance Physical Therapy, where you can, grow personally and professionally, these are the exact qualities I would hire. Now, whenever you're listening to this, whether this was, I'm actually doing this on my birthday in 2022. So whenever you're listening to this, these qualities, they might adapt here and there, but they're going to be kind of the solid foundation of what I think produces really good humans and clinicians. So clinicians like yourself and physical therapists say, they assume that when they come to a facility and they apply somewhere, right? You're going to a residency, you're going to the dream job, right? You assume that on your resume that the employer or somebody choosing, if you're going to come into the world residency or whatever it is, you're assuming your GPA or your skills are the most important thing that they're looking for. Now, as long as, as long as you're coachable, the skills are secondary. And that's hard for people to hear because you spend so much time of your life acquiring skills, right? You go to PT school, you acquire skills, and then you go CEUs and you acquire more skills. But what I'm telling you, notice that the characteristics I just talked about had nothing to do with skills. They're hardworking, they're adaptable, they're growth focused, they're self-starters, they're humble, they're introspective. Now, your GPA is a byproduct of all of those things. So yeah, I can look at that, and if I know that your skills maybe they're not where they need to be, or they're like maybe you don't have a lot of good strength in manual work, or mobilizations or taping or whatever it is, those are trainable, right? But hardworking, adaptable, growth focused, self-starter, humble, and introspective, those aren't necessarily like coachable. Like I can't teach you those things. So it's like who you are as a human. And as I continue to grow either sports performance or my mentorship company, I want to help those who have those characteristics go to that next level. Now, I'm saying skills are secondary. They're not the most important. I'm not going to say they're like they don't matter in general, but they are secondary because skills are coachable. All these other traits are very difficult because they're who you are. And if you're saying, well, Chris, like let's think about the opposite, right? And maybe you've worked with these people, maybe you've seen them in PT school. Their skills are amazing, but they're not really growth focused. They're not self-starter. They're not really humble. They're not really introspective. They're really good at their job. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you can see how they're going to cap. Their skills will cap out at some point, and them as a human will be the limit as to how far they can grow personally and professionally. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that when you're looking for a job or you're looking for a position, these are what employers like myself, mentors, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for those characteristics. So if you see me at one of my upcoming events, right, and you shake my hand, I want to assess, like, are you a hard worker? Are you adaptable? Are you growth focused? Are you self-starter? Are you humble? Are you introspective? And that to me means it shows me a lot about who you are. And then you add layers of skills on top of that, unstoppable. And that is what I'm trying to do on this planet, is get groups of those people together and just conquer the world in sports, in professional athletics, get you in positions where you need to be. Because as I talk to more and more clinicians, I spoke with somebody recently and they asked, hey, do you know of any opportunities that come in pro sports? I get those requests all the time. I get employers reaching out to me and saying, hey, I have a job in Europe, or I have a job in Atlanta for a professional team. Do you know anybody? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my database and look for those humans that I know that have all these characteristics. Why? Because the professional team wants the skills. I totally get that. But ultimately, they want the characteristics right behind that. So I'm not going to vouch for somebody who just has the skill set, because I know they're going to cap out and the team's going to, like, now my reputation's on that line. People and employers, residencies, they're looking for the human being behind all of that, and then they'll add on the skill set. Let me say that again. Companies, residencies, whatever you're looking for, they're looking for the humans with these traits, and they'll just layer on the skill set because they want you to be an ambassador of their organization. So they're looking for the best of the best, who are going to be the self-starters, who, when given the skill set, they're just going to explode. They're literally going to take it to the next level. And I know it because I have these conversations with them. So, I think that the human being needs to come in with these traits and characteristics, and then they will be taught the skills. Now, if you have the skills and these things, oh my goodness. And so I wanted to share this with you, that physical therapists that I would personally hire would have all of these and continue teaching them skills, and they're truly unstoppable. They're unstoppable. I've seen really good clinicians advance through that. I have fantastic clinicians on my team, and the ones that I mentor, I totally see all of these things in them, and that's why they're able to adapt and grow and do kind of take it to the next level. As I mentioned, we're looking for growth, right? We're looking for like next level for our company, and ultimately the next step for me is to advance either in clinics or in people. And as I advance more clinics, I'm going to need amazing people to help fill that and grow that. And these characteristics would help do that. So my vision is to be able to do that, and that's the next stage for us. On the mentorship side, we're adding more and more clinicians onto these tracks to be able to help you wherever you are and have a greater reach. And so no matter what business or whatever profile or whatever setting it is, all these things still apply. So I hope this helps wherever you are. And all these discussions happen from strategy calls that I do with physical therapists, personal discussions I have with my wife at like 1 a.m. randomly, or the team meetings. And so as we continue to prepare and I reflect on my 40 years on this planet, I wanted to share with you. So whether you're 5 years out, 10 years out, 2 years out of PT school and you're now practicing, or you're a new grad or you're a student, these are all relevant things for you to think about. Now, I didn't teach you about taping. I didn't teach you about mobilizations. I didn't teach you about stretching or any of these things, because those are all things that I think that you're going to get elsewhere. And ultimately, this is real. This is real personal and professional development that you're not going to get a lot of places. And I think that if you can really understand this at the highest level and you can implement this, your personal career, your professional career will advance so much farther. And that's what you're looking for, right? Like as a sports physical therapist, you're like, I can get the degree, I can get the certification, but what do I need to do to give me that one little edge to get to that first step in that right door? These are the things that I'm telling you because it's worked for me. It's worked as I talk to more people and more organizations, high level organizations. That's the same process they're looking for, because they're looking for people who are going to stay with them long term, ambassadors, who are going to look great on media, who are going to, be personal reflections of who they are and their core values. And that's ultimately what they're looking for. So wherever you are on this planet, I hope that helps. And if you haven't, if you want to spend some time and talk about some of these things and develop, I'm excited to see you at my next event. My next upcoming event, whenever you're listening to this, is in July of 2022, July 23rd, 24th, at my Strength and Conditioning Summit. If you can't make it then, I would totally jump on my webinar the 19th of July at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Either way, I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to help you grow. I literally just want you to advance to that next level. So I hope that helps, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. Take care.